A mic check, camera check, everything should be working. I'm Samuel Potts, and this is my original oratory on vaccines. Vaccines are an important part of our current health as a society, but there's been something disturbing brewing. Something very disturbing. This something is the anti-vaccine movement, or as it's known as on many internet forums, the anti-vaxxer movement. Now, people denying science and being rude about it, possibly killing their kids, well, you might be picturing a Karen with a bob cut. And, well, kind of right. But either way, this anti-vax movement does not have any legs to stand on. First thing I'll need to go through before going directly into the anti-vaccine movement is to talk about the history of vaccines. The first thing that worked like a vaccine started in 1000 AD in ancient China. This process was called inoculation. What they did was grind up smallpox scabs taken from an infected person and then blow said scabs into the nostril or rubbed on an open wound. Spreading around, this would provide an immunity but also get people very sick, depending on their already developed immune system. The next step to modern vaccines was the wave of many diseases spreading around the world due to trade and colonialism, like smallpox in India, whooping cough in Paris, typhoid fever in Wales, and finally, smallpox in the New World, one of the most deadly diseases to ever exist in humanity, killing nearly 90% of the Native American population, according to some sources. All this may seem highly counterproductive, but all this death made people more willing to give new technologies a try in desperation. This caused a widespread adoption of inoculation, just like in China. When Emperor Fu Ling died, his son made inoculation much more widespread and free. And then in Russia, Catherine the Great made indoctrination free after her lover died of smallpox. Next, the Continental Army of the United States was then inoculated if they haven't survived smallpox before. And then on May 14th, 1796, over 200 years ago, a man named Edward Jennifer discovered how to vaccinate humans without getting them as sick. Then, Waterhouse brought the idea of vaccinations to the U.S. by sending it to the current Vice President, Thomas Jefferson. Then, many countries started adopting vaccines and it became way more widespread than inoculation due to their effectiveness. Then, as more and more vaccines were produced, the entire diseases were getting nearly eradicated. In the early 2000s, a 99% reduction of polio cases over a few years. 5 years without a single case of diphtheria in the United States, and that was only in 1,000 years out of the over 15,000 year existence of modern day humans, just by trying new things and putting things in it. Speaking of things that are in vaccines, what are in these injections that we get nearly every year, and even as babies? Well, there's cyanide? What? Everyone know that'll kill you. Will it be from pills in World War I that spies would take to keep them from speaking? Or the poisoning of many important figures. Formaldehyde. That's the stuff they use to keep dead bodies looking fresh. Like myself. That'll kill you quickly. The hydrogen monoxide? Well, that's just a waste product of nuclear reactors. I wouldn't want that in my body. Oh wait. That's just plain old water. Something you should drink every day. What about iron, copper, zinc, and a myriad of other metals? I wouldn't want that in my body. But the thing is, the ingredients I just described are the same things that are in an apple. Something that, we even have a saying for it. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. Something that's relatively seen as healthy. Now, this anti-vax, if you find yourself agreeing with this, then possibly you yourself are an anti-vaxxer. Well, I guess if they won't take vaccines, they'll just starve to death by, not eating apples. Well, either way, they'll die anyway due to the easily preventable disease that they're bringing back. So here we go. The thing that anti-vaxxers is 100% proof that vaccines cause deadly or life-destroying things like autism and other mental illnesses. Now, vaccines are typically given at the age of a few months old to maybe even a few years old. With the annual flu vaccine so often, now autism is typically diagnosed at 8 to 18 months old. And that's when many vaccines are administered. Now, if this doesn't seem like solid proof to you, wait. The thing is, it's not vaccines that are causing this quote-unquote widespread quote-unquote autism epidemic that these anti-vaxxers would claim. It's just that we have better testing. We have better testing to detect autism at an early age, causing this sort of correlation. However, correlation does not equal causation. Now, speaking of kids, let's talk about the main group of people affected by the anti-vaccine movement. The children of these anti-vaxxers who are exposed to many preventable diseases over the course of their childhood, like measles, mumps, rubella, the flu, which by itself may not be that bad, but can be a death sentence to kids, adults, teenagers, old people who have poor immune systems. Kids being around unvaccinated kids exposes them to these diseases that could cause their death. Well, if it could cause their death, why would they get a vaccine? Why didn't they get the vaccine? Well, nowadays we know that people can get very sick because of vaccines, not because of the vaccine itself, but because of their compromised immune system. They could risk death by something as simple as a common cold. What happens when we get the common cold? We stay inside for the day. Now, there's a concept called herd immunity. In a herd immunity, typically is when 85 to 95 of a population is immune to something. So the 5 to 15% don't get sick. Now, in major cities like Miami, New York, Los Angeles, and others, this isn't even much of a problem because so many people are immune to the disease due to vaccinations, then it's perfectly fine. But if you don't live in these massive cities, rural towns of less than a few thousand people who already might have trouble getting their regular vaccines are now getting exposed at a much higher rate than they were before, than they could have been before if people just got vaccinated. We have the resurgence of life-damaging diseases like polio, like rubella, like mumps, measles, smallpox, things that have killed millions of people. Now, if you find yourself agreeing with anything I said, anything, and then yes, you are not an anti-vaxxer. You have a slight amount of common sense. But if not, hopefully I was able to teach you something. This concludes this piece. And hopefully you know that now, more than ever, with the resurgence, with the new COVID vaccine, that these things are necessary and should not be ignored. But hey, I see one reason not to get vaccines. They stop adults. And those annoying shits are everywhere.